God exists and I'm here. Let's get on to our first argument about heaven now that we're 1 hour and 17 minutes into this.
Okay.
What's the point in heaven? I mean, that's really a bit of a thing, right? So, like, and hell, and we'll talk about hell maybe in a little bit more detail in a bit. But what's the point in heaven? That seems to be the end game. I mean, we spend eternity there if we succeed in getting there. But why is that created? What if God has complete foreknowledge, right, and creates people already knowing who's going to pass and who's going to fail, who's going to go to heaven, who's going to go to hell? Then why bother doing all this? Like, what is all that God is doing is creating people in order to get punished or not get rewarded, depending on how you see hell. And just creating a bunch of people to experience some pain and suffering on earth and then throw them into heaven. It's like, well, just create heaven. And again, we'll come on to that argument in a little bit of time. So what's the point in hell is perhaps an even stronger argument because actually heaven's quite nice, very nice, or as nice as you can possibly imagine. Hell is pretty darned horrible. It's the worst you can imagine. So why would God do that? Now let's think about our own prison system. Why do we punish people? Actually, there are three elements to the prison system. Traditionally, it's been retribution, deterrence, and rehabilitation. So that's why we put people in prison, for those three things. But as we understand human behavior more and more, and this is really linked to free will, retribution becomes less and less of a coherent idea. Because if you deny free will completely, libertarian free will, then actually retribution is morally abhorrent, because you're punishing someone for just doing what they're going to do, and they're always going to do that because they're the person they are in the situation they're in. Like, they've got a ruined childhood, or they've got these kind of genetic makeup, or this kind of biology, or Adrian Raine, in his amazing book called An Anatomy of Violence, talks about the biosocial jigsaw, why people act in antisocial manners. If you're going to buy a book, buy that book. No, buy my books. After you buy all my books, buy that book. Adrian Raine, An Anatomy of Violence. It is superb. But the idea is that you're punishing people for doing what they're going to do in that situation that they're in, always. And if God then knew that was going to happen and creates them anyway and then punishes them, is God that is looking morally abhorrent here, not the person that does a moral wrong on earth. And so retribution doesn't make sense on that. So therefore, it's about deterrence and rehabilitation, or it should be. Well, it turns out that deterrence is not particularly affected by harsh punishment. So the prevailing data shows us that the harsher the punishment, it only has a very marginal effect on whether you're going to do it. So it turns out that some countries around the world with really harsh punishments have actually got higher crime rates. What's going on there? So there actually is a lot more that's going on. It turns out that the biggest effect on whether you're going to commit a crime or not, so the biggest deterrence is the perception of whether you're going to get caught or not. That's actually got a much bigger effect. So, better policing, that's got more chance of being. So if you go, if you're thinking about, I'm going to shoplift at my local shop, right? And you think I've got a 0.005% chance of being caught, then actually you haven't got much of a veto to stop you doing it, other than your moral character. Obviously, I wouldn't do that, but some people will think, right, I can really easily do this and get away with it. But if you think I've got a 99% chance of being caught, then actually hardly anyone's going to shoplift with that perception. So actually, what the much better deterrence is the chance of being caught. So when you talk about hell being a really harsh punishment, really it doesn't act as a deterrent. And then you've got rehabilitation. So what the idea of our prison service is you punish someone, you give them, so say the Norwegian system that only has a 20% recidivism rate in a lot of their crime, depends which crime it is, but that's the lowest recidivism. Like America is something like 83% on certain crimes. So it's just terrible judicial system, or the system of incarceration in America. It just is a broken system, and the rehabilitation doesn't work. So it's a revolving door. You do a crime, you go into prison, you actually learn some more skills, you go and commit more crimes, you come back, and blah blah blah. But when it works well, we skill people up, we treat them humanely, like in Norway. You give them the skills, you send them back out in society, and they don't come back. Excellent. Hell you're committing someone to hell, they stay there for eternity and they just get punished for eternity, literally forever. That's a problem. Sorry, that's a lot of me talking. Derek, you talk.
No, I'm enjoying listening to you talk about this. Yeah, I think where do you even begin with this whole idea of hell? It's really complicated, because with the thinking that you're putting in, if it's not a deterrent and someone already feels like they already deserve hell, they might go, you know what, screw it, I'm going to get punished anyway, the worst. What if the opposite's true and they decide they're going to do even more at this point? I'm just saying there might be a few number. Just like you said, it isn't much of a deterrent. Well, there might be that few percent who goes, I'm going to hell anyway. I'm going to do everything evil I can possibly do at this point. Not many people do that. But my point is, it's like, it definitely affected me psychologically. My mom all the time still tries to call me, hey, honey, listen, I wanted to talk to you. I heard something the other night in my dream, and I just want to make sure that you say a prayer to God and stuff like that. Like, I don't want you to go to hell. And I'm like, it scares her, and so she's always constantly in fear.
There's not a lot of data out there, but there is some data to suggest that belief in hell does lower crime rates a little bit, like hardly at all, very little bit. Interestingly, belief in heaven increases crime rates. So, there you go. So actually, if you believe in heaven and hell, whatever, doesn't. So for me, hell, like if you're going to do that, especially if you're going to commit someone in advance of creating them to hell and then create them anyway, it's just, I can't get over how morally abhorrent that is. But hell should be transformative, is my opinion. Right. Like that, if I was all loving, like again, what would we predict if we knew nothing else and we knew God existed and was all loving? I would think that all kind of punishment would have some transformative effect, which is why I think Christian universalism is far more attractive than these ideas of this retributive version of hell and so on. So it's not transformative, and that's a real problem.
Dale Allison Jr., I think, is a big fan of Origin, because Origin had something of a universalistic position. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. I'm tracking with you. I honestly don't know if there's much I could comment other than I read this horrible book that really screwed me up for months, called A Divine Revelation of Hell by Mary Kay Baxter, when I was younger. And she talks about how she went to sleep one night and Jesus appeared to her, took her by the hand, took her soul. Her body stayed in bed the whole time, by the way, in her house. Took her soul, went up high and above the earth. It must have been probably a globe. I don't know. Either way. Looked down and saw all these holes, these portals to hell. And then, I'm trying to give you the nutshell here. Like he takes her down through these holes, and there's these souls or whatever spirits trying to reach out to grab them as they're going down these little tunnels, these little portals that go down into earth. Hell is in earth, and hell is in the shape of a human. There's a mouth. You enter in through the mouth of hell. And then he, through the whole book, supposedly takes her through every section of the human anatomy in hell. And she was really good with words. Let's put it that way. Vivid imagination. You good?
I just went into a portal into hell. That was so weird. Anyway, sorry.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm all right now.
So Jesus takes her into the heart, which is the worst place of hell in her book, and leaves her. She starts getting tortured, and the worst things are happening to her, and she is screaming and tormented. And then she's going in agony. I can't even put the words out there. You'd have to read the book. Next thing you know, she wakes up in her bed and she's mad at Jesus. And then Jesus comes to her again a week later and is like, I'm sorry. I needed you to experience this. Now I need you to tell everybody about this place. I need you to
So that's transformative. So that's transforming her, and that's acting as useful for informing other people. Now, it doesn't seem like the traditional version of hell, and again, it's not really evidence in the Bible. Let's remember this. The kind of Renaissance period brought Dante's Inferno and the idea of hell. seems to have really come from that kind of period rather than the actual Bible. But those understandings of an eternal torment are just not transformative at all. And the idea that God would have some kind of indignation that
I need to pause you for a second. Jesus only got her out of it as an experience so that she could write this book to tell others, you're never getting out of this. So yeah. I hope you didn't get a misunderstanding. Right. He left her in the worst spot in this place, hell, in her book, of course. Great imagination, because she wrote a book after that called A Divine Revelation of Heaven, A Divine Revelation of This. And she's like wrote all these books that really sold.
Turns out it's all about money.
It had nothing to do with money. What do you mean, Jonathan? This is true.
Sorry.
You know that. We all know that. We're all suppressing truth and unrighteousness right now by even denying Mary Kay Baxter's book to be infallible here. But no, he takes her out and just wanted her to experience a taste. And then says, I'm sorry, but I needed you to see this so that you could. I'm like, yeah. I believed it at the time. It freaked me out. Vivid imagination. Anyway.
This idea that God has some kind of indignation with the way that humans act, as I say in page 142 of my book. Let's get this right. God designs and creates a universe knowing the outcome before creating. God creates a group of entities with the full knowledge before creating them that they will go to hell, and creates them anyway. And then it sends them to hell for eternity out of some sense of indignation and retribution. Ha! That'll teach you, for me designing you like that and knowing that you would do that. I'm going to punish you forever. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Or, and this is just an idea, maybe God shouldn't create those people in the first place.
That'd be a much kinder, loving thing.
So that gets us on to the next argument, chapter 21, which is God cannot be perfect or perfectly just and merciful.